The night over Halden Ridge was thick and unmoving, as if the world itself were holding its breath. The townspeople kept their lanterns low, whispering in doorways, speaking her name with equal parts fear and hope. Word had spread faster than any rider, faster than any flame, that the Queen was alive, and that she was coming. It begins not with the Queen's steps, but with the storm she carried behind her. For 3 days, the sky had churned with green lightning, the kind that split clouds sideways instead of down. Annals hid, the wind refused to blow. The air tasted metallic like the first breath after waking from a nightmare. And deep in the old castle, the one abandoned after her disappearance, the throne room remained lit, though no hands had touched the torches. It was in that throne room that the Queen now stood. Her cloak was torn, edges burned. Her crown hung from one hand, not worn, but held loosely as if she still needed to decide whether she deserved it, or whether she could trust the kingdom that once turned on her. She walked slowly toward the center of the room, cold stone echoing beneath her boots. Dust spiraled in the air, moving around her as if pulled by invisible strings. "Show yourself," she said quietly. The shadows listened. Then one of them moved. A figure detached itself from the wall, slender, hooded, voice sharp as a needle. "You shouldn't have come back alone." The Queen didn't flinch. "I wasn't given a choice. You could have stayed dead." A small, cold smile touched her lips. "I tried." Something in the hooded figure stiffened as though that answer revealed more than any confession could. The Queen continued, "You brought them here, didn't you? The Wraith Order? The same ones who cursed my bloodline? The same ones who swore I'd never wear the crown again?" The figure's silence was confirmation enough. "Baven?" The castle trembled, a soft rumble, a pulse beneath the floor, as if something ancient beneath the kingdom had awakened. "You feel that?" the Queen asked. The hooded figure stepped back. "The seal is weakening." "Then you know what that means." "It means," the figure whispered, "that the creature your ancestors buried is about to rise again." The Queen tightened her grip on the crown. "Which is why I returned." A gust of cold air swept through the room, no wind, just force. It pushed the torches sideways. The stone beneath them cracked like thin ice. From somewhere below, a roar distant but vast rolled up through the castle's bones. The hooded figure turned sharply. "We don't have long." "We never did," the Queen replied. "But I am not the girl I was when I fled, and I am not the Queen they betrayed." Lightning flashed through the windows, green, violent, spiraling. The Queen lifted her crown, her voice steady and unbroken. "Call the armies," she said. "Every house, every tribe, every rider. If they refuse, tell them the creature will not." The hooded figure hesitated. "They still fear you." "Good." She placed the crown on her head. "Fear reminds them why they need their queen." The castle shook again, harder. The roar grew. The Queen's power rose with it, swirling the dust and torchlight around her like a living storm. Her eyes burned with the same green lightning flashing outside. "There is no turning back now," the hooded figure warned. "There never was," she replied. "Not for a true ruler." The final tremor nearly knocked him over. And then, from deep beneath the castle, something massive began to break the surface. The Queen stepped toward the sound. "Let it rise," she whispered. "I am ready." The earth beneath the old castle trembled as if it remembered every secret buried in its bones. The Queen stood unmoving, crown gleaming faintly in the flickering torchlight, her eyes alight with fire and determination. She could hear the creature's movements beneath the stone, a grinding, scraping sound that vibrated through the floor and into her very chest. Its breath was ancient, foul, carrying the smell of rot and metal, of years untouched by sun or sky. Yet there was something else, something almost familiar in its rhythm, like a heartbeat aligned with hers. The hooded figure's voice was sharp, barely audible over the quake. "It's coming. Whatever this is, it's been waiting for you." "De la Ranau," fully the Queen nodded. "Then it shall not wait any longer." Lightning split the sky outside, green and violent, illuminating the grand hall in fleeting bursts. Shadows danced across walls carved centuries ago, revealing hidden runes and symbols that pulsed faintly with an inner light. The old magics were stirring, responding to something beyond mortal comprehension. The first crack appeared in the throne room floor, thin, almost imperceptible at first. Then it widened, spreading jagged lines outward like veins in ice. Dust fell from the ceiling. The torch flames bent wildly, as though sucked by the force beneath the stone. The hooded figure raised a hand, chanting something low and hurried, words that twisted in the air like smoke. The Queen stepped closer to the edge of the fracture, feeling the vibration beneath her boots. She could hear something moving, below us, scraping, then a rumble, then a sudden, terrifying silence, and then it emerged. From the depths, the massive head of the ancient beast broke the surface. It was enormous, scales blacker than the night itself, eyes glowing with a deep green fire, wings unfurled like the sails of a storm-tossed ship, scraping against the walls and ceiling. Its roar shook the very air, rattling teeth and bone alike. Even the torch flames trembled before it. The Queen did not flinch. She lifted her hand, the crown shining like molten gold. I am Dielora Fireborn, she said, her voice steady and resonant. I am Queen of Westoria. You serve me or you fall. The creature paused, head cocked as if measuring her. A faint hiss escaped its maw, the sound vibrating in harmony with the ancient stone. It was not fully hostile in that yet, but it was aware, and awareness was enough. Then it lunged. The battle began in an instant, though no swords had yet been drawn. Fire and magic, instinct and rage, collided in the chamber. The queen moved with the precision of someone who had faced death and returned. She did not run. She did not falter. She spoke words of command, ancient syllables that curled around the creature like chains of light. The creature lashed its wings, knocking over stone pillars, sending warriors and the hooded figure sprawling. But the queen did not retreat. She raised her voice. Then from somewhere deep in the castle came a responding cry, a secondary roar, smaller but equally potent. Drakarian had come. The dragon circled overhead, wings beating a furious rhythm. The ancient beast looked up and hissed, its green eyes locking with Drakarian's gold-flecked gaze. And then the battle truly began. Flame met claw, fire against shadow. The queen stood below, directing her dragon, commanding her warriors. Moving like a conductor orchestrating a symphony of destruction and defense, magic lanced through the air, meeting scales and stone alike. Sparks flew, stones shattered, torches fell. Through it all, Jorn remained at her side. Though no words passed between them, each knew the other's intentions. They were no longer the children of betrayal, the victims of prophecy. They were rulers, warriors, and kin, bound together by fate and fire. The Ashborn began to retreat, sensing the shift in power. The creature below, ancient beyond reckoning, recoiled under the combined force of dragon and queen, magic and steel. Its roars turned to howls, to cries, to a sound almost human in its anguish. Dielora spoke again, her words carrying across the chamber, pure authority and command. You will bow, or you will burn. There is no middle ground. The beast reared, then collapsed under the force of Drakarian's strike and the queen's unleashed magic. The floor cracked and groaned. Dust and debris filled the air. Silence followed. When the dust settled, the creature lay subdued but alive, its green eyes flickering with respect or perhaps understanding. The queen stepped forward, placing her hand upon its massive snout. I do not destroy what I cannot control, but I will not let you harm my people. The creature lowered its head, a gesture that could only be called acquiescence. Jorn exhaled, leaning on his sword. I didn't think we could do it. Dielora turned to him, eyes softening for a brief moment. Neither did I, but we are no longer the ones who fear, we are the ones who command. The hooded figure, still kneeling in the rubble, whispered, Breakin will know, he will see this power, he will come. Dielora's gaze hardened. Let him come, we will be ready. Outside, the first light of dawn broke, washing over Halden Ridge in gold and fire. The wind carried away the ash and frost, revealing a world still standing, though changed forever. And in that moment, the queen realized something she had not understood before. This was only the beginning. The war of fire and frost had begun. The battle for destiny had begun, and the world would never be the same again. The dawn over Halden Ridge was sharp with frost, each blade of grass glinting like shattered glass. The snow had begun to fall again, slow at first, almost polite, but with intent. The castle had survived the night's terror, the ancient beast subdued, but no one felt safe. Not the queen, not Joran, not the riders who had survived. Something larger was stirring, something patient and inevitable. From the northern gates, scouts returned, breathless and pale. They reported movement, silent, methodical, coming from the east. Small at first, just a handful of figures, then a mass, growing with every heartbeat, stretching across the valley. Armies were gathering. Dielora mounted her horse, the crown balanced with unshakable authority, her cloak rippling like liquid flame. Drakarian circled above, massive wings cutting through the storm clouds, his roar answering the growl of distant thunder. Jorn rode beside her, hand resting on the hilt of his sword, eyes scanning the horizon. The Three-Eye Raven's forces, Dielora said, voice low, controlled. He knows we are here. He knows the creature is mine, and he will not let it live to oppose him. Every army in his reach will march to this valley to stop us. Jorn's gaze did not waver. Then we stop them first. Before they can form lines, before they can plan, strike fast, strike hard. That's all the Norse teaches us. Outside the castle walls, the first banners appeared on the horizon. Black and gray, the sigils of Breckons, minions his soldiers, the wraith-like assassins, and remnants of the Ashborn who had survived the last encounter. Their approach was silent, disciplined, and cold. Dielora looked down at her troops. You will fight with me, she commanded. Not for a crown, not for glory, but for life itself. For the world they would have broken if we faltered. The soldiers stiffened. Some nodded, some muttered prayers. None stepped back. Fear was present. Yespa, It had been tempered by purpose, by leadership, by the queen returned. Drakarian beat his wings, the sound carrying across the ridge like a cannon blast. The smaller dragons Jorn had raised in the land of always winter appeared next, shadows growing as they descended from the north. The ground beneath the approaching armies seemed to shiver at their presence. Then a voice, rasping, low echo cut across the battlefield, carried on the wind, unnerving in its clarity. Delora Fireborn, Queen of Flame, Jorn's Child of Frost. The wind carried Breccon's words, though the man himself remained unseen, hidden in the folds of the eastern mist. You rise where you should kneel. You summon powers you cannot command. You will fail. Delora's eyes narrowed. And if we do not, then the world will burn, the voice replied. And not by my hand, but by your own. Jorn turned his gaze toward the valley. I don't care what he says. His tricks, his magic, none of it can stand against what we've built. He clenched his sword, feeling the familiar weight of northern steel in his hands. The dragons roared in response, circling higher, each beat of their wings stirring the snow into swirling curtains, making the battlefield both chaotic and clear. The first clash came with a shout. From the mist, Breccon's assassins moved with impossible speed, darting like shadows between the trees and rocks. But the queen's forces were ready. Spears were thrust, axes swung, and magic met magic in sparks that lit the snow in eerie bursts. Delora and Jorn fought side by side, each a blur of motion, steel, and command. Drakarian descended, raining fire on formations that dared approach too closely. The smaller dragons flanked him, their own flames cutting through enemy lines, leaving scorched earth in their wake. Brecon finally appeared, stepping from the eastern fog, hood drawn, staff raised, eyes glowing faintly blue beneath the shadow of his hood. The world seemed to bend around him, a ripple of power that distorted the air. Do you think you can oppose me? Breccon's voice carried across the valley, amplified by the magic coursing through him. You are children playing with forces older than your kingdoms. I will unmake you. Delar stepped forward, crowned gleaming in the first true sunlight of morning. And I will remake the world in fire if I must. But it will be with life, not death. The air crackled as she spoke, flames sparking from her fingertips, her dragons circling overhead in a perfect formation. Jorn moved with precision, cutting down the wraiths that attempted to flank. His movements instinctive, almost preternatural. The valley became a storm of fire, steel, and magic. Snow melted into steam where dragon flames struck. The Ashborn that survived the last night were crushed beneath hoof, claw, and sword. Every step of the queen's advance seemed to draw the storm of prophecy closer. Yet she moved with the certainty of one who had returned for a purpose beyond fear or vengeance. Brecon raised his staff, and the ground itself began to split in jagged lines, attempting to swallow the queen and her forces whole. A river of molten frost erupted, hissing as it met the dragon's fire. Delora's voice rang out, clear and commanding. Hold the line. Do not falter. Strike as one. Jorn leaped onto a boulder, surveying the battlefield, and then with a shout, led a charge into the heart of Breccon's line. The dragons followed, diving through enemy ranks with precision, fire igniting their path, and together they struck a balance of flame and frost that no magic could withstand. Brecon hissed, fury breaking his calm. You cannot defy destiny. The queen, standing tall on the ridge, raised her crown, skyward. Destiny is ours to shape. The world itself seemed to answer. Lightning, snow, fire, and wind collided, the valley shaking with raw, untamed power. Every soldier, every dragon, every spell cast became part of a single, unstoppable tide. And in that moment, it was clear. The war was no longer just for kingdoms or crowns. It was for the very soul of the world. The battlefield had become a storm of fire, frost, and chaos. Yet atop Halden Ridge, Dialura, Fireborn and Jorn Stormheart moved with a deadly grace, untouched by the tumult surrounding them. Brecon, the three-eye raven, had emerged fully from the eastern mist. Staff in hand, eyes glowing with unnatural blue light. Every spell he cast warped the ground, bending the air like ripples across frozen water, summoning shadowed figures and twisting Ashborn horrors. But the queen and her allies were prepared. Every movement of Drakarian and the other dragons was synchronized with the soldiers on the ground. Flames erupted in calculated arcs, cutting down Breccon's reinforcements before they could form a coherent line. The smaller dragons, now grown to monstrous proportions, struck from behind, attacking with fire and claw, herding the enemy toward traps laid by Jorn's northern scouts. Breccon's staff collided with Drakarian's flames, sparks flying as magic met dragon fire in a shower of light and fury. The three-eye raven's voice rang through the valley. You dare defy the prophecy? You cannot win. Delora'sVoice.com, but cutting, rose above the chaos. Prophecy does not bind those who refuse to be bound. It is a chain we choose to break. Breccon's eyes narrowed, recognizing in her the power he had long underestimated. This was not just a queen returned. This was fire incarnate, a force older than kingdoms, fueled by loss, fury, and love. Joran lunged forward, sword glowing faintly from residual northern magic, cutting down an assassin that had slipped past the dragons. Behind him, the northern soldiers held formation, inspired by the sight of their prince fighting as if the gods themselves guided his hand. Brecken unleashed a wave of shadow energy, sweeping across the battlefield. Soldiers screamed, fire ignited, and snow turned to steam, yet the queen did not flinch. She raised both arms, calling upon the dragons, calling upon the fire born from her very bloodline. A pillar of flame shot upward, pure and blinding, striking Brecken directly, forcing him to raise his staff in defense. The three-eye raven staggered but did not fall. His blue eyes glowed brighter, almost impossibly so, as he raised his staff higher. "You will not survive this fireburn." Delora stepped closer, the ground trembling beneath her boots. "I already have," she whispered. Then she spoke words older than history itself, syllables of power that twisted in the air and touched every heart on the battlefield. By blood, by fire, by truth unbroken. The dragons roared in response. Circling higher, converging above Brecken, Drakarian let out a scream of pure rage, and the smaller dragons followed, fire licking the misty air like molten rivers. The shadows surrounding Brecken shrieked and dissolved under the intense heat, revealing him fully for the first time, no longer hidden behind illusion or fear. Joran stepped forward, placing himself between the queen and the raven. "It ends now," he said, voice steady despite the roar of battle. "No more shadows, no more lies, no more death that isn't deserved." Brecken laughed. The sound a hollow echo. "Do you think mortal courage can rival destiny itself?" "I am beyond your comprehension," Delora replied, stepping closer. Until now, with a cry, she thrust her hand toward him. Fire surged from her fingertips, catching Brecken off guard. The raven raised his staff, countering the flames with a wall of blue energy. But the queen's power was relentless, unyielding, multiplied by the presence of her dragons and the unwavering courage of her allies. Drakarian dove, wings spread wide, fire blazing like a sun falling from the sky. One of the smaller dragons struck simultaneously from behind. Brecken's staff shattered under the combined assault, his magic dispersing in a storm of sparks and wind. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by the roar of dragons circling above and the deep, resonant cries of the battlefield. Brecken staggered, kneeling, his power drained, his illusions gone. The Ashborn and Shadow soldiers fled, dissolving into the mist as if they had never existed. Delora approached the kneeling raven, her expression unreadable, neither cruel nor merciful. "The world will not bend to fear," she said. "It will not bow to shadows. You are done." Brecken's blue eyes flickered, the last remnants of his magic winking out. "You cannot control what comes next," he whispered, voice barely audible. "You can try," Delora replied, "but it is I who chooses the world now." Joran stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's over," he said. The words carried relief, exhaustion, and awe. Drakarian landed beside them, his massive head lowered in a gesture of understanding and loyalty. The smaller dragons followed suit, circling slowly before landing. Smoke and steam rose from the battlefield, twisting in the morning light like a warning to any who might think to challenge them again. The soldiers cheered, some still trembling, some silently crying. Victory was theirs. But the queen did not exhale, did not smile, not yet. She surveyed the battlefield, taking in the cost, the destruction, the lives lost, the world she had reclaimed. Then, finally, she allowed herself to speak, softly, to Joran and to the dragons. "This is our world now, and we will protect it. Together." The valley lay quiet but alive, filled with fire, frost, and the promise of a new era. The three-eye raven's shadow had been vanquished, his armies scattered, and the Ashborn subdued. But in the distance, beyond the mountains and frozen plains, whispers of prophecy still lingered. Power had shifted, alliances had formed, and one thing was certain: the queen had returned. And nothing and no one would stand in her way. The morning after the battle broke over Halden Ridge like a promise. The sun glinted off shards of ice and scorched earth alike, illuminating the aftermath with a cruel clarity. Soldiers and dragons alike rested in the valley, some tending to wounds, others simply staring at the horizon. The snow had melted in places where dragonfire had licked the ground, leaving blackened scars in the frost, reminders that power was both creation and destruction. Delora Fireborn stood at the edge of the ridge, crown secure on her head, eyes sweeping the lands below. She could feel the pulse of the world, alive and trembling beneath her, the echoes of prophecy still whispering. Though the three-eye raven had fallen, his influence lingered like a shadow just beyond reach, waiting for the next moment to test her reign. Joran rode up beside her, his expression unreadable, hardened by battle, yet softened by the sight of victory. "The ridge is ours," he said. "The Raven's armies scattered, the Ashbourne broken. What now?" Delara's eyes did not leave the horizon. "Now we consolidate. Westeros cannot remain in chaos. The kingdoms must see the Queen has returned not as a shadow, not as a memory, but as a force they cannot ignore." From the valley below, scouts began returning with news. Houses that had hesitated during her disappearance were either rallying to her banner or retreating in fear. Messengers flew from the nearest towns, spreading word of her victory. The dragons, the power displayed? Some whispered awe, others whispered dissent, but all could not deny her presence. Joran shifted uneasily. Some houses may not bend so easily, some will resist, some may even seek to rise while the north is distracted. Delua turned toward him, face calm but eyes burning. Let him try. The old balance is gone. Any who oppose the new will learn quickly that fire and frost are not so easily divided. Below them, the soldiers began repairing for tending to the wounded and preparing to move forward. The dragons roared, their wings beating in harmony, a living drum signaling dominance and vigilance. Joran looked out toward the eastern horizon, where mists still clung to the mountains. "And Jon Snow?" he asked quietly. "Has he returned from the north? Has he begun his journey south?" Delora allowed herself the slightest smile. "He is coming, with his dragons. And when he arrives, the north and south will finally stand united not by fear, but by blood and loyalty." A faint rumble came from the northern peaks, soft at first, then louder, echoing through the valleys. Dracarys stirred, nostrils flaring, wings shifting with anticipation. One of Joran's smaller dragons, the blackish-blue one he had left behind, let out a piercing cry in response. "They are close," Delara said, voice steady, certain. "The north remembers its king, and the dragons remember their rider." Joran studied her for a moment. "And if Westeros resists us?" Her eyes narrowed. "Then we remind them of the consequences of defiance." The valley seemed to hold its breath, the wind still, the snow frozen, even the mountains seemed to pause, waiting for the next act in this unfolding drama. From the north a dark silhouette appeared against the snowy ridges. At first it seemed a trick of light, but as it drew closer, the unmistakable shapes became clear. 3 massive dragons, wings beating against the cold air, flames flickering faintly at the edges of their jaws. And upon the largest, the shadow of a lone figure, cloaked and resolute. Joran's jaw tightened. "Jon Snow." Delora's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried through the crisp morning air. The last piece falls into place. As Jon descended into the valley, dragons following in perfect formation, the soldiers below felt awe, fear, and hope all at once. The air thrummed with power, the living pulse of Westeros shifting under their feet. The queen stepped forward, raising her hand in acknowledgement. Jon landed beside her, the snow crunching beneath his boots, eyes scanning the battlefield, then settling on her. For a moment, time seemed suspended, the world holding its breath. Fire met frost, history met prophecy, and the past collided with the present. Then, silently, the queen spoke, her voice carrying like a bell across the valley. "Westeros is ours to reclaim, together." Jon nodded once, eyes meeting hers, unspoken understanding passing between them. The dragons stirred, wings beating, flames flickering, shadows dancing across the valley. They were not just weapons, they were symbols, living proof that the world was shifting beneath new rulers. Joran exhaled, finally allowing himself a flicker of relief. Then let them come. Let them all see what it means to oppose the queen and her allies. The sun broke fully over the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley, illuminating fire and frost alike. The world was watching. Westeros would never be the same. And somewhere, in the distant north and distant east, whispers of rebellion and loyalty alike began to stir. The queen had returned. And now, the true reclamation began. The sun rose higher, melting frost into rivulets that trickled down the slopes of Halden Ridge. The morning was deceptively calm, though every soldier, every dragon, every commander knew that peace was fleeting. Westeros was awakening to a new era, but with every step forward came whispers of unrest, betrayal, and ambition. Delura Fireborn stood atop the ridge, crown gleaming in the light, cloak fluttering behind her. She watched the valley below, her dragon circling overhead, wings cutting the wind like blades of shadow and flame. Jon Snow stood beside her, eyes trained to the horizon, silent but alert. His presence was a reminder that the North had returned, that the forces beyond the wall were now part of the reckoning. "Westeros is fractured," Jon said quietly, voice low enough that only she could hear. "Some houses will bend, some will fight. Some will pretend to bend until the opportune moment to strike." Delora's gaze swept the landscape. "Letnam, those who resist will learn quickly that this is no longer a kingdom that can be ignored. The time of shadows, of whispers in dark halls, is over." A scout rode up, snow and dust, clinging to his armor, breath steaming. He knelt quickly before the queen. My queen, messengers from the southern kingdoms. They send word. They wish to meet, to discuss your return, their allegiance. Dolores' lips curved into the faintest of smiles. Allegiance is a word that carries little weight without proof. Have them send their strongest emissaries. Let them see the fire they attempt to tame. John's hand tightened on his sword. And if they do not send emissaries, if they refuse to bend, then they will learn, she replied. And lessons will be taught with fire and blood, if necessary. Westeros is not gentle with the unprepared. Yeah. From the ridge, the valley below looked deceptively peaceful. Soldiers moved with purpose. Dragons roared faintly above, and the air shimmered with residual magic, the kind that left a tingling in the skin and a weight in the chest. But even amid the preparation, the queen felt the first stirrings of Annie's faint, almost imperceptible, but there. Jon, she said, her voice cutting through the morning air. How long before your dragons are ready to march in full force? They are ready, he replied. 3 of the 6 will remain in the north, as we planned. But the rest, they are fully grown, fully trained. They will follow my command. As they always have. Daelora nodded, eyes closing for a brief moment. Good, the world needs to see that we are not to be underestimated. That fire and frost are not just symbols, they are the foundation of a new order. The first banners of Westeros' southern houses appeared on the horizon, distant but unmistakable. Colorful, patterned, some proudly worn, others attempting subtlety. Daelora and Jon both observed in silence. Each banner was a testa, promise, a threat, a question. Some will come willingly, she said softly. Some will come out of fear. Others will pretend, and the truly foolish will attempt defiance. Jon exhaled, snow misting in the cold air. I do not envy you that part of the crown. The political games, the deception. Daelora's eyes opened, blazing with quiet fire. Deception has no place in what comes next. Strength, clarity, and decisiveness will guide this kingdom, and any who oppose it. Her hand swept in the air, a gesture as much symbolic as it was commanding. They will face what dragons can do. Drakarian and the other dragons roared in response, wings beating in unison, the air vibrating with their power. Below, the soldiers echoed the sound, a deep, resonant murmur that carried across the valley like the heartbeat of Westeros itself. The queen turned, face sharp and commanding. We march within the week. Every house that sends emissaries must see the strength we wield, the unity we command. And every house that refuses must learn that rebellion against fire and frost comes at a cost they cannot survive. Jon looked at her, eyes meeting hers with quiet concern. And if we face betrayal, even from those who kneel, Daelora's smile is cold, precise. Then we remind them why they do not betray those who control both fire and frost. And if necessary, she'll let her gaze drift to the horizon, to where distant mountains and forests blurred into mist. We show them the price of defiance. Let the dragons speak for me. If words fail, the air shifted, a faint tremor beneath the earth, as if the land itself awaited the coming march. Soldiers adjusted armor, dragons flexed wings, and the queen's army prepared for a journey that would test loyalty, courage, and the limits of power. In the north, hidden within the forests and frozen peaks, shadows stirred. Not all had pledged allegiance. Not all had bent the knee. And from beyond the seas, whispers of rebellion and ambition began to coalesce. Daelora turned to Jon, expression steady. Are you ready? He nodded. For what comes next, I am ready. For the world we are about to reshape, we both must be. The queen smiled, faint but firm. Then let the march begin. Westeros will see its queen returned, and they will know that the age of fire and frost has arrived. Above them, dragons stirred, wings casting long shadows across the valley, fire flickering in their throats. The march to King's Landing and the reckoning of all Westeros had begun, and somewhere, far beyond sight, Brecken's influence lingered, faint, whispering, waiting. The queen knew that victory in the field was only the first step. The true battle for the realm was only beginning. The city of King's Landing lay before them, sprawling and tense beneath the midday sun. Its walls were worn with age, battered by countless wars, yet still proud, still unyielding. Daelor Fireborn and Jon Snow rode at the head of their army. The dragons circling above, casting immense shadows across the streets and rooftops. The banners of her army fluttered proudly, flames and frost intertwined in a display of power that left no doubt this was a queen returned, and she would not be ignored. Below, the citizens of King's Landing whispered in fear and awe. Rumors of her return had preceded her by weeks, traveling faster than any raven could fly. Merchants shut their stalls, guards drew tighter lines, and nobles hurried to their windows, trying to catch a glimpse of the queen who commanded fire and dragons alike. Joran rode beside Daelora, scanning the horizon. The Red Keep, he said, voice low. That is where the political heart of this city beats, and where the first lines of opposition will form. Daelora's eyes narrowed, unwavering. Let them come. The games of kings and lords have ended. Today, Westeros sees a ruler who does not negotiate from fear, but from power, from truth, from fire. Jon Snow's gaze was steady, though tension flickered in his eyes. And yet, not all houses will bend so easily. Some may feign loyalty to strike at us when we are vulnerable. Daelura looked at him sharply. Then we ensure vulnerability is impossible. Every move we make must be decisive. Every gesture must show strength. And every lie must be met with fire or frost. As they entered the city gates, the ground trembled slightly beneath the weight of their forces and the dragons above. Citizens fled to alleys and doorways, some hiding, some daring to watch. The army's march was orderly, a display of discipline and precision, each step a testament to preparation and power. From the Red Keep, courtiers and nobles began to emerge, their expressions a mix of curiosity, fear, and defiance. Messengers had gone ahead, delivering the queen's summons. Some would kneel willingly, others would resist openly, but all would feel the weight of her presence before they spoke a single word. Daelura dismounted, her boots crunching on the cobbled streets, the crown on her head gleaming in the sunlight. She did not hurry, did not rush her, steps deliberate, measured, regal. Jon followed, his dragons landing nearby, wings folding with an almost conscious restraint. Their eyes scanned the streets, flames simmering faintly in their throats as a warning. A hush fell over the crowd as Daelura approached the steps of the Red Keep. She lifted her hand, and silence deepened, the kind of silence that spoke louder than 1,000 shouts. From the balconies, nobles stepped forward, their voices faltering as they spoke her name. Queen Daelura. Daelura did not interrupt. Instead, she allowed the weight of her presence to speak. The combination of crown, dragons, and command, leaving no doubt, who now held power in Westeros. One noble, braver than the rest, finally stepped forward. "My queen," he said, bowing deeply, "we wish to pledge our allegiance." Daelura's gaze swept across him, and her voice cut through the silence like steel. "You will not pledge allegiance to me because you fear me. You will pledge allegiance because you recognize who will protect Westeros, who will guide it, and who will wield power with clarity and resolve." A murmur ran through the gathered nobles. Some nodded, others stiffened, uncertain. Jon stepped beside her, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "And those who refuse?" he asked. Daelura's eyes glimmered, fire and frost intertwined. "Those who refuse will learn the cost of hesitation, the cost of defiance. And when they see the strength we wield," she gestured to the dragons circling above, "they will understand that the age of shadow, of manipulation, of treachery, is over." From the far end of the courtyard, a shadow moved, unnoticed by most, but clear to the queen. A figure, cloaked, hooded, watching. Even amidst the submission of the nobles, there were always those who plotted, those who whispered, those who would not bend willingly. Daelura's lips curved faintly. "We see you," she whispered. The words carried through the courtyard, soft yet impossible to ignore. The hooded figure froze, then melted back into the shadows. A faint ripple of unease spread across the assembly. Even now, Daelura's presence commanded power beyond words. Her enemies realized that she was not simply returned. She was renewed, stronger than before. Jon's gaze shifted to her, silent understanding passing between them. "This is only the beginning," he said softly. Daelura's eyes met his, unwavering. "Yes. And from here, every step we take must claim what is rightfully ours. Every alliance, every city, every crown must recognize that fire and frost are not to be trifled with. Westeros will bend or it will burn." The first emissaries stepped forward, hands raised in cautious respect. Whispers spread among the nobles, the alliances forming, secret pacts shifting. The city itself seemed to hold its breath, aware that the return of the queen was not merely a spectacle, it was a declaration. And in the distant shadows, beyond the city gates, unseen eyes watched, plotting, waiting, knowing that the game had only just begun. The figure hesitated, sensing the sharpness of her gaze, and then retreated, melting into the corridors. The council room remained tense, every noble now aware that the queen's eyes did not merely seethe, they perceived. Daelura turned to Jon. "We must be proactive. This city is a nest of ambition and deception. We secure it, piece by piece. We root out those who would undermine us before they can act." Jon nodded. "And the dragons. They remain a deterrent," she said, "and a reminder. Their presence ensures the cowardly think twice, and the bold well, they will learn that fire is not easily ignored." As they spoke, a messenger arrived, bowing low. "Your Grace," he said breathlessly, "word from the Shadow Council. They convene tonight. They are whispers. Plans that may threaten the stability of the city if left unchecked." Daelura's eyes gleamed with determination. "Then we will attend, not as guests, not as supplicants, but as rulers. Let them see that the queen returned is not one to be trifled with, nor is her king." Jon exhaled, tension easing slightly. This is a different battlefield than the North. Here, cunning and patience matter as much as strength. Dolores' gaze swept the room, resting on every face, reading intentions and concealed motives alike. Then let us remind them that fire and frost together are unstoppable. We rule not by fear alone, but by proof, by action, by decisiveness, and by the knowledge that those who oppose us do so at their peril. The day passed with careful measures, orders for patrols, subtle demonstrations of strength, positioning of dragons in strategic courtyards, and quiet, deliberate movements of loyal forces. Every street, every house, every alleyway in King's Landing became part of a carefully woven web of control, a chessboard where every noble, every citizen, every emissary was a piece to be understood, guided, or removed. By dusk, Daler and John stood on the battlements, overlooking the city, dragons circling silently in the fiery sky. The horizon was streaked with gold and crimson, reflecting in the eyes of the queen as she surveyed her reclaimed realm. "This city will bend to the new order," she said quietly, voice carried only to John, "and it will not be broken in the process. But we must be vigilant. Every move we make must anticipate the next." John's gaze followed hers. "And yet, there will always be someone waiting to test us. Someone bold enough or foolish enough to challenge fire and frost." Dolores' lips curved into the faintest of smiles, cold and precise. "Then we ensure they do not live to regret it. The Queen has returned, and Westeros will remember that name. Every ally, every enemy, every shadow plotting against us, they will remember." The dragons roared, a deep, resonant sound that echoed across the city, a warning to all who dared defy the throne. The Queen had reclaimed her power, but the game had only begun. And somewhere, in the winding streets and shadowed alleys, whispers of resistance began to stir, waiting for the moment to test her resolve and the strength of the dragons at her command.